Hello everyone, Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. Today is Sunday, January the 26th, 3:30 Rio de Janeiro time, and we are getting started. And I see Gary. Gary, good to see you over here. Gary has a question. Good afternoon, Dr. Oliveira. As a Brazilian resident, what is taxed on foreign income, especially exempted income like Social Security? All right, Gary. So, just a heads up, taxation, right? Like is usually done on an aggregated basis, meaning they are going to look at everything that you have and not on a line by line basis, right, Gary? So I can give you, like some feedback. I can tell you about some of the drivers from the Brazilian legal system when it comes to, taxation. Just a heads up, like you must consult with ideally a tax attorney. Yes, you're going to have a accurate answer to your question. And it goes like this, Gary. Brazil will tax pretty much anything and everything that you have anywhere, right? So this is a driver. So that means they're going to charge you, yes, your partially exempted income like Social Security. Brazil does not follow any rules from other countries in terms of exemptions and credits or deductions, right? Like you play by the Brazilian rules, and they just look at your income. However, usually with the United States and many other countries, and there are some tax treaties with some countries, not with the United States, though. With the United States, the way it works is like Brazil is going to usually try to give you a credit for whatever tax you are paying abroad. So let's say, I always use this example. If you have a 15% tax liability on a retirement income, which is usually, what I have in my head right now. For some of these more straightforward lines, Brazil is going to give you a preferred rate of 15% instead of the maximum of 27.5%. Which is the highest bracket we have. In addition to that, they are going to give you a credit. So let's say if you're paying 10% of federal taxes on your Social Security income, Brazil is going to give you this tax that you paid as a credit in Brazil, meaning that you would have to pay 15%. But guess what? Like you have a credit for 10, now you're just paying 5, right? So but these are the drivers, right? Like every single income you're going to pay tax. There are some, different brackets depending on the type of income, and you get a credit. All right. I hope that was helpful, Gary. Dragon, Lucian, I'm here and ready to go. Welcome. Good to see you again, Dragon. I hope you had a few good days since we spoke. Yes, I did for sure. I hope you did it as well. All right. He's asking, does the letter of verification still work if I am a freelancer, sole proprietor with the UK company as my client, provided the income, there is no contract, but I will be invoiced then myself. Right. So let's give some context for the other viewers. And Dragon is asking specifically about the digital nomad route. Digital nomad, you can apply abroad, and there would be a digital nomad visa. If you apply while in Brazil, which is our preferred route, because of several reasons, it's going to be the digital nomad residency, right? Not a visa, because visas are issued exclusively abroad. And you can also do that while in Brazil, physically in Brazil, but that's going to be a residency. And Gary is asking about the letter of verification. So whenever Brazil is providing you with, let's say, the digital nomad residency, they are going to look at several things, but two of them are going to be your income, and it's going to be, some proof that you are working, right? So on the income side, usually if you have $18,000 sitting in a bank account, Brazil is going to, leave you alone. Is not going to be trying to see if you're being paid every month and this and that. Like you show just 18,000 and you're good. Now, the question we hear a lot is, all right, so if I show the 18, I don't need to tell that I'm working, right? Because Brazil is happy. No, Brazil is happy with the financials, but you still need to show that you're working. And nowadays, instead of showing contracts from the US, which in 99% of the cases are not compliant, as per the Brazilian requirements, we're gonna instead use a letter of verification. So we have like a template, and we give this template to our client. Our client, uses this template and gives to whoever is providing the verification. And then in this letter, they are going to have every single piece of information that the Brazilian immigration is expecting. So again, instead of, having to translate a 30, 40 page contract, usually in a single page, sometimes 2 pages, you're going to be able to have all the information that the Brazilian immigration is going to need to approve your application. So that's what Dragon is asking about. And now my answer to Dragon is that, as long as you get this, letter of verification signed by whatever company is vouching for your work, you're good, right? So, the Brazilian immigration is not going to be asking if there is an invoice. Brazilian immigration is not going to be asking, if this entity was formed in the UK, if it was formed in the US. It's basically just a company signing on this letter of verification. Now, another common question is, what if I am the owner of the company, right? In our understanding, there is nothing wrong with it. You just need to have someone else at the firm signing on your behalf. It could be someone from, the human resources. If it is a small company, it could be someone, who's doing your books, who would sign on behalf of the entity. And, we never show things such as articles of incorporation or, operating agreements, just because when the immigration analyst is reviewing the paperwork, they just don't have space on their checklist to explain this type of thing. And you're just creating confusion instead of helping with your case when you're hammering, well, I am the owner of the company, here's the paperwork, and here is financials for the company. Nobody's asking you for that, all right? So just skip on this nonsense and focus on the things that the Brazilian immigration is asking from you. All right, Dragon, so I hope that was helpful. We have Yuri. Welcome, Yuri. I think it's the first time we see Yuri over here. Hi, coming to Rio on February. Can you please tell me how I can apply the CPF on the ground? Yuri, we don't like to tell you to do so in Brazil just because it's usually a hit or a miss. I can tell you the places in which they are supposed to help you, but many times they are going to decline you because they are either busy or they don't know how to do it, all right? That's pretty common in Brazil. So in the past, we would tell our clients, listen, you can do it at the consulate, which is the preferred route because they are going to do it. It's usually fast, free, and effective. And when you try to do in Brazil, if we tell you, the Brazilian Post Service is supposed to do it, Banco do Brasil is supposed to do it, and the third one, Brazilian Revenue Service themselves, they are supposed to do it. Guess what? Many times people are going to go there and they're not going to be able to get it done because, again, they're either busy, you're getting an analyst who doesn't know how to do it, and instead of saying, I don't know what I'm doing here, they're going to tell you that there is something wrong with the system. They're going to tell you that they're not really doing at that time. There is a bunch of excuses you can hear. So, yes, you can do it in Brazil. If you just have a persistency and you want to knock on those doors, I just told you the 3 doors, Yuri. So again, Banco do Brasil, the postal offices, and the Brazilian Revenue Service themselves. Right now, it's a hit or a miss. Sometimes people, they say, well, you said it would be complicated. I went there and took me 10 minutes. I said, good for you. Now, for another person, they're going to say, well, I went over there. They gave me a protocol. They said I should come back in 20 days. I came back over there. They couldn't find my case. I had to reapply, and now I'm 40 days down the road. I have no CPF, and that's your fault, right? So that's why we usually say, Yuri, not a good idea to apply on the ground, but yes, possible to apply on the ground, and now you have the 3 names that you need for your attempts. Brazilian Postal Service, Banco do Brasil, which is the Bank of Brazil, and the Brazilian Revenue Service. Faz, welcome Faz. Good to see you over here. I don't recall Faz. Maybe it's first time that we have a Faz over here. You're pretty welcome, Faz. Hello, Dr. Oliveira. I am a Portuguese national and planning to get Brazilian citizenship. How long should I stay in Brazil to get a Brazilian passport? Faz, the traditional route for people to apply for the Brazilian citizenship is going to be 4 years, 4 years of a permanent residency in the country. Okay, usually Portuguese citizens are able to apply for the Brazilian permanent residency right off the bat, right? So let's say you come to Brazil, we apply for the Brazilian permanent residency because you're Portuguese. You get the permanent residency, then you need to stay in Brazil for 4 years. After 4 years, you could apply for the citizenship. And I assume, right? Maybe not, but I would assume that Portuguese is not going to be a challenge for you because this is one of the requirements for you to secure the citizenship, right? There is no such requirement for one to have permanent residency in Brazil. But yes, it is a requirement for the citizenship though, all right? I want to welcome everyone who's here at the channel. Ask you, if possible, to please like our live stream. This is going to help us bring more people to attend our live streams, to make this thing more interesting. And of course, this is going to be helpful for other people just like you who need to find this content. So I really appreciate. I see we have a few likes over here, and I'm sure they are going to increase as we go. All right, M3. Hi, M3. M3 says, hey, Luciano, following up. I spent the holidays in Rio and Sao Paulo and had a wonderful time. That's great. Glad you know, M3. And you know, that's where we have our 2 offices as we speak. We have an office in Rio. We have in Sao Paulo. We have an address as well in Brasilia, okay? And we're going to eventually have like an office in Brasilia. Because all the embassies, like the embassies in Brazil, they are usually in Brasilia, which is the capital of Brazil. But as of today, you know, like we are in Rio and Sao Paulo, that's where I spend a lot of my time, MG. So I'm so glad you enjoyed your holidays in Rio and Sao Paulo. And I'm just curious, MG, because you're sharing, did you like one of them better than the other? Was it Rio? Was it Sao Paulo? Tell us what you like it. Let us know, M3. The Cold War channel. It has been a while. Good to see you again, Cold War. I had a consultation with you in the past, yes. And you mentioned that you would send the info for a tax professional. You know off, I never received it. Can I send an email to get a referral? Absolutely, yes. I apologize if you didn't get. We do have like a colleague of ours. He actually files tax returns for many of our clients. We do handle also tax returns here at the firm, but not for everyone. Like it really depends on the situation. We usually handle the most straightforward ones here at the firm, and whenever it's something more complex or there is, you know, a kind of a question of a tax nature, then we usually send, you know, to this colleague of ours. But yes, Cold War, please send an email. We're going to get it to you today. Thank you for the heads up. Faz, what kind of Brazilian permit do I get as a Portuguese national, right? So there is a specific line, Faz, for Portuguese citizens, right? So you're going to get, it's called residência, right? So the name in Portuguese, and I think you're going to understand it, is autorização de residência para cidadãos portugueses. All right, that's what you're going to apply. We usually apply through a special system at the Brazilian immigration, okay? You know, it's somewhat difficult for people to apply by themselves. You know, like the system is not really intended for end users, but there is the so-called, like if you want to take a shot, there is the so-called Migrante Web 2.0 or Migrante Web 2.0, and it's a platform for immigration services. You need like the Brazilian tax ID, and you can file stuff over there. They have a bunch of questions that are technical in nature, And not a surprise that many of our clients, like not many, but I would say an exception, maybe 20% or 15% of our clients, they are going to try to do something on their own first. And then once they realize it's not really working, they're going to come to us, right? But there you go, autorização de residência para cidadãos portugueses. That's the name of the residency for you as a Portuguese national, and you could try to do it using the Migrante Web 2.0. You just search for Migrante Web, and you could see the system, right? Like, I mean, just maybe showing it real quick over here. All right, the system. All right, Google, and that's Migrante Web 2.0. Let's take a look at it. I hope you guys can see my screen. All right, let's see if it's working right now. Sometimes it's down for maintenance. All right, this is the system. Loading up. Let's see if it loads. Taking a while, right? Like, I mean, yeah. So here is, right? Like, and then you click over here. You need Brazilian tax ID. I'm not gonna log into the system, because if I do it, you're gonna see several names of clients, right? And we need to preserve confidentiality. But there you go. Now you know how to do it. Right, fast. Let's go back to our questions. Rule it out. I hope I'm pronouncing reasonably your user. Roulette. Roulette says, hi, Luciano. Oof. All right. Welcome. Good to see you over here, Oof. And I'm glad you came over here. My question is regarding land purchase for development. If the land is cheap, below the 700 you need in the Northeast for residency, how does it work regarding the development budget? First thing, again, good to see you over here. I'm glad that you are in this journey of pursuing real estate. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't work like this, right? Like the Brazilian immigration, they are not going to consider any money that you're spending on development, right? So you got to buy real estate in the target amount, and you got to show that you're paying for the real estate, right? So if you buy something, for instance, for 400,000 and you spend 300,000 in developing, in building, right? Like you're buying the materials, you're paying the workforce, none of that is going to be considered for the purpose of the real estate investment visa, all right? Unfortunately, okay? And if I understand that the mindset of the Brazilian government is because they would say, listen, there's going to be too much people playing games over here. A person buys something for 200,000 and say that they spent 500 and present a bunch of, I don't know, paperwork that's not like, that does not match the reality. So they said, like too much concerns over here, we're going to skip on that. So it does not qualify, all right, Uf? That's the straightforward answer. Now, what you could do, like if you're buying land for 400,000 and it does not meet the 700, is like, let's say you buy an apartment, like 1 year down the road, and if the amount, the minimum requirement remains at 700,000, I mean, if it remains because it has been the same for 7 years, so as of today, right, like, I mean, it should be 1.4 million instead of 700,000. If you buy an apartment down the road, so you have the 400 for the land that you bought and the 300, okay? Another concern, if you buy bare land, usually it does not qualify. Right, so there are many requirements, and I like to say, I usually share here at the live stream, but I understand like you're not in every single one, so the question is welcome, actually, is that we have many requirements for this thing to go through, so you need our support before you start to buy stuff, so you know that you're buying is actually qualifying for the real estate investment route, right? Like, so it cannot be bare land, it cannot be rural, and whatever you're going to spend to build is not going to be considered, all right? Another heads up, if you're going to buy one of those lands in the Northeast that are not that do not have a title, they do not qualify as well. Super common in the Northeast. Seller is gonna say, "Well, I have a bunch of paperwork," and they're gonna come with this much of papers. When you look at it, there is no title, right? There is all kind of BS paperwork, right? Ação possessória, like there is a title of possession. There is a whole bunch of nonsense documents. The only thing that you need, which is the title, guess what? You don't have the title. So traditionally, we don't see those things working. Okay. Now there is a somewhat I'm not sure if I say noise or truth divines, saying that some people, they are able to get it without the title with just the closing papers. But whenever we have clients here at the firm, like they don't want to, it's not like betting, right? Like they're not betting, they're not taking the chances. Like they want to spend the money and get what they need. So we would never touch any property that does not have a real title. All right, you never mentioned that here in your question. I'm just mentioning because I would assume 700 Northeast, right? So it's the land of the no title, properties. And just a heads up for you to plan accordingly. Oof. I hope that was helpful. Dragon, yes, I'm doing the 18,000 route, but I'm just confirming that this arrangement as a freelancer with the UK company is valid, as it is different than our prior discussion that had me as an employee. There is no requirement, Dragon, for you to be a formal employee. I know we're talking about UK, but just talking about US terms, like you could be a contractor, you could be a 1099, you could be a freelancer with not even a 1099. When Brazil immigration is looking at the letter of verification, they're not asking how is your arrangement, right? How is your arrangement with the company providing the letter of verification? So I would say as long as the letter of verification is there, you have the 18,000, letter of verification looks legit, there is a company behind, they're saying that you are doing some, digital work remotely, you're making, an X amount of money, you have, the job description, like those criteria that the Brazilian immigration is expecting for. I don't see why it wouldn't work. All right, Dragon. We can never guarantee 100%, but based on what you're saying, as of now, I don't see a problem from the specifics. Yuri, thanks for the details. My flight is next week. Do you think there is enough time for me to schedule something at the Berlin embassy to issue me a CPF? No, I don't think there is enough time, Yuri. That's too soon. And listen, you can get a CPF in Brazil by all means. I'm usually just share those difficulties as a disclaimer, right? Because again, when I tell people that they can get in Brazil and they don't, they usually try to shoot the messenger. They say, well, you said I could, and I'm going through hell, right? They say, well, not my fault, right? So don't worry, you're gonna be able to do it in Brazil, Yuri. Just if you have a hard time, hopefully you're gonna be enjoying talking to other people, making friends, while visiting those institutions. But it's absolutely feasible. It's just like a matter of trying a couple of places, maybe 3 places, and you should be able to get it. All right, Yuri. So no concerns. Yes, 1 week, not enough for you to book something at the Berlin consulate. All right. Gary, how long does it usually take between submitting the docs to your firm and then being ready to file with Brazilian immigration? Gary, it depends on the track, right? Usually a digital nomad is the fastest route for anything because paperwork is pretty straightforward when you're filing with us. We just need one document apostilled, which is going to be your birth certificate, right? Now, if we're talking about the retirement, the retirement has changed substantially, like a year and a half ago. Up to that point, the only document to be apostilled was, again, the birth certificate. But now, The Brazilian immigration is asking for, about 5 or 6 documents to be apostilled for the, retirement route. So this thing has become like I think it's even more complex than the permanent residency through marriage, right? Like, it's very complex. We need to address a bunch of papers. We need to chase, apostilles in different states. It's a complex process for the retirement route, right? And again, it's not just for you to submit. We actually needed to work together on those documents, Gary. So, maybe just a reference, if you was like digital nomad, usually say, listen, if you come into Brazil, start working with us 1 month before coming to Brazil. Usually you arrive in Brazil 1 month on top of your arrival. It's usually the timeline to file. So altogether, 2 months to file for the digital nomad. Retirement is becoming a different ball game. So usually I say, hire us like at least 2 months before coming to Brazil, because then we start to work on the documents. We review the documents you have. We set up a strategy to get the apostilles for the retirement. Even your criminal records are going to need an apostille. If you're doing FBI background check, this thing is going to take like a couple of weeks to get the hard copy. After that, usually we need to have the apostille done in Washington, D.C. It's just a pain in the neck through all the process. All right, so usually 2 months before you come to Brazil, an additional month. I don't know about the balloons, apologize for that. But again, for the retirement route, usually a couple of months before you're planning to come to Brazil, an additional month after you arrive in Brazil. That's usually the timeline we have to file your application. All right, Gary, I hope that was helpful. Yuri, because in Germany everything takes time, that's why I wanted to apply for CPF in Rio. Yeah, Yuri, I get it. Yeah. Usually, like the consulates, the Brazilian consulates, and again, I understand things in Germany take time, and in Brazil it's not different. Probably, in Brazil or the Brazilian consulates is going to take even more time. But yes, usually we would recommend you to tackle the CPF at the Brazilian consulate a month or a couple of months before you're planning to come to Brazil, Gary. So, Yuri, so yes. Now I understand the question of the timeline. Yep. Okay, we have a Zulu time. Welcome, Zulu. Good to see you over here. Hello, sir. Could you please describe a path for an American coming to Brazil on a retirement visa with intention of gaining Brazilian citizenship or other path that allows me to open a business? Yeah, so let's talk about the retirement route. On the retirement route, you have 2 options. You could apply through a consulate abroad. Okay, so if you're talking about the United States, you could go to any of the Brazilian consulates. We also assist with applications through the consulate. There are many consulates in the United States: Atlanta, Houston, New York. There is one in Connecticut. There are a couple in California, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and there are others as well. So that would be an option. We usually prefer to apply for the retirement residency in Brazil instead of abroad, okay? And the timeline is that you usually get 1 or 2 years, 1 or 2 years as a temporary residency. After you've been, for 2 years in Brazil, you may try to apply for a renewal under the permanent residency. Okay, for some of the applicants, they are going to give after 2 years. For some other applicants, they are going to give the permanent residency after 4 years. And once you have the permanent residency, Zulu, you're going to need to stay in Brazil for 4 years. Right? So let's say worst case scenario, 4 years under the retirement route, 4 years under the permanent residency, and that's when you can apply for the Brazilian citizenship, right? So I know it sounds like a long time, but that's a realistic planning, right? A realistic plan for you, and that works. That's been working well for many of our clients. All right, Zulu, and you were mentioning citizenship for either path. Business route, you can also potentially secure the residency in Brazil through a business. We usually do not support that route. We just think that business in Brazil for citizens, particularly those coming from the United States, is just too risky. We have a plague here in Brazil, which is like the labor lawsuits. Super common in Brazil for employees, to try to take advantage of employers. So, during the employment, everything is just, flowers and love. Once you fire the employee, they're going to, come up with a bunch of claims. And, unfortunately, there is a large sector of the Brazilian legal system working in this space. So you have literally, dozens, if not hundreds of thousands of, labor attorneys in Brazil, just waiting for, one of these former employees to show up so they can sue the employer, right? Like, so it's just something we don't want to see happening to one of our clients, and we don't assist with their route, but their route is available as well, Zulu. You buy a business, I think, it's a little bit less than 100,000 US dollars. You invest in this business, you need a business plan, you need, a bunch of documents. In theory, you can get either 2 or 4 years as a temporary residency. Next time you renew, you can get the permanent residency. And then, just like as the retirement route, after 4 years as a permanent resident, you can apply for the citizenship, Zulu. I hope that was helpful. All right. Okay. M3 is going to share some interesting details over here. M3 says, Rio is a single man's paradise. I stayed in Copacabana. Next time I will stay in Barra. São Paulo is more chill and upscale. Stayed in Jardim Paulista. I love both for different reasons. I love Brazil. Yes. So Copacabana is so interesting. Copacabana, for those of you who do not know, Copacabana is closer to Ipanema, and of course, it's like an iconic neighborhood in Rio de Janeiro. And Copacabana is very interesting because you see people from all walks of life, right? Like if you go to Ipanema or Leblon, it's more like rich people. You just see like rich people. You're not gonna see people who are from different walks of life, but not Copacabana. Copacabana is like such an amazing place. I mean, you see people, from like you see foreign citizens, you see locals, you see people from the communities, you see people who can really tell like don't have much or much resources, and they're still coming to Copacabana to enjoy, and everybody is like living life together and happily, right? There is a special type of vibe in Copacabana I like a lot. I don't know why some people in Rio, particularly, not even like just the rich people, some people are just gonna have, some level of contempt for Copacabana. I don't know why. They say, well, Copacabana is trash and this. I love Copacabana. I have no problem with Copacabana. And I actually think that you can have a more Brazilian experience in Copacabana than you would have in either Ipanema or Leblon. Because again, Ipanema or Leblon is a kind of, I don't know, like, I mean, kind of more stiff experience. Like, and Copacabana, it's so lively. I mean, I really think, Copacabana is a good call. So there you go, M3. Thank you so much for sharing those personal insights. All right, let's see. Faz, I have been researching on getting Brazilian nationality, and I was reading it will take 1 year. Brazilian official portal. Is this incorrect? Do you provide the service? What are your charges? Yes, we have many clients applying for citizenship, Faz, and the 1 year track is specifically designed for 2 types of applicants, right? Like, I mean, unless they are making this available to Portuguese citizens, which I don't think should be the case, honestly, right? Like, I've never heard about it. They could always change at any point in time, but usually the 1 year is the fast track. And the fast track is going to be available to spouses of Brazilian citizens and parents of a Brazilian citizen, meaning that if you marry to a Brazilian or if you have a child in Brazil, yes, you're going to have the 1 year track, but never heard about the Portuguese citizens having access to the 1 year track. And it doesn't sound like probable to me, because I know that Portugal, and we work with Portuguese immigration, by the way. Portugal gives Brazilians such a hard time when they are trying to establish themselves in Portugal. And the idea here is that there should be reciprocity. So why would Brazil give the 1 year track to Portuguese citizens if Brazilians are suffering like hell in Portugal, right? I don't think that's the case, Fast, but I may be wrong, okay? So 1 year track, yes, available under marriage residency and, childbirth in Brazil residency, Fast. And yes, if you find some information about this being available to the, Portuguese citizens, we're going to take a look into that as well. Okay, Dragon, I understand. Thanks for that clarification. You're pretty welcome, Dragon. Good to see you over here again. Asking for those of you who haven't liked our live stream to please do so. That helps with our work over here, and it does help with people finding our content out there once they are Googling for these topics. I really appreciate those of you who have already liked it. If you haven't liked it, please consider doing so. All right, roll it. Thanks. As a follow-up, would it work? Oh, sorry, I'm not. I don't want to skip on your question, Faz. So we do provide the service. We are currently charging $1,250 for the citizenship application, which is roughly what the both bar associations, the Rio de Janeiro Bar Association and the São Paulo Bar Association, have as the minimum amount, right? As the minimum allowed amount for a law firm to charge you. So, sometimes I ask myself, are we charging a good price? And when I see, the reference tables from the Brazilian Bar Association, I say, well, we are actually charging as little as we can, meaning that if we charge less, we are kind of, incurring into an infraction with the Bar Association. So, $1,250. I hope that makes sense, Faz. All right, roll it. Thanks, follow up. Would it work to buy land and develop it to create a business, and this way obtain residency? So that's an interesting question. We had a consultation probably 10 days ago from prospective pousada, right? A pousada owner in Rio de Janeiro, and he was planning to buy at an auction, right? And he said, can I buy the money that I'm going to spend on this and that? I said, listen, no money that you're going to spend out of pocket is going to qualify, no money at all. However, the money that you're funding the entity, yes, is gonna qualify, right? So in theory, right? Like, I mean, again, we don't provide the business route, right? So it's important for you guys to understand. We are talking more about the general knowledge we have about the immigration framework than from experience. But again, from the general framework, it works like this. You have a business entity, and you're going to invest money into this business entity, right? And then the business entity, on the other hand, could spend the monies to buy the land and to develop the pousada, right? And the pousada, for those of you who do not know, pousada is a very typical type of, it's like an inn, right? Like, it's not a hotel, it's usually by the beach. I'm going to show you over here the one we've been working, Pousada Jurema Branca, right? So that's the one. We have like a joint development in Sierra, right? So this is a pousada, okay? That's a Hotel Pousada Jurema Branca. That's the one we develop. I like to spend the time over there. I'm there like every few months. Like, this one is exactly, like by the beach. So this is from the Posada, right? Pretty. Oh, sorry. I thought I was sharing my screen. Apologize for that. So let me start. This one is the Pousada Jurema Branca. All right, here you can see like this one has a private swimming pool. This one has a jacuzzi, a spa, and you can see here like there coconut trees. This is like right by the Pousada, right? There is nothing between the Pousada. Here are the chalets, like we call the units, and the beach. Pretty nice place. So this is a Pousada. That's what Ulf is asking about. Okay, so there you go. Now you know what a Pousada is. Let's get back to the chat. All right. So yes. So that in theory it would be possible, but the way I see this happening is like you form a business entity. You're gonna send the money to the business entity. So the money qualifying for your residency is not the stuff that you're buying. The money qualifying for the residency is the money that you fund in the business. Okay. And now the business is going to use the money to buy the land, to develop the land, and run the business. Okay, you would need a business plan, and you need to find like a law firm who's like specializing on the business route. But that's the the concept that we have in our minds for someone who wanna runs a business. Get the money. Money needs to be sent from abroad directly into the business. So there is a registration to be done with the Brazilian Central Bank. You need to have everything well documented. You're not going to be using WISE. You're not going to be using, a bunch of small transfers. This money needs to be coming formally from abroad into the business bank account after recording with the Brazilian Central Bank, right? As you can see, nothing in Brazil is like straightforward. There is always some level of red tape and bureaucracy. But the good thing of this answer is that yes, potentially you could do so. I hope that was helpful, Rolet. Yuri, thank you much. Appreciate for the guidance. You're pretty welcome, Yuri. Zulu timeline is fine. Planning to buy a condo and leave it there. Thank you for the help. Absolutely, Zulu. So just remember, right? Like nowadays, if you follow the real estate investment route because you're planning to buy a condo, if it is in the Northeast, if you buy a condo for $700,000, you're gonna get the 4-year residency from the get-go. Next 4 years is gonna be a permanent residency, and the next 4 years could be already your a citizenship. All right, Zulu. So you also have the route for the real estate investment. Okay. Gary Amber Happener. My wife is Brazilian. She has dual citizenship, Brazil, USA. Would it be simpler for me to apply as with her as my spouse rather than as retiree? Yes, Gary. Yes, absolutely. Of course. Like if you have a Brazilian spouse, you can basically just apply for what we call here as the marriage permanent residency route. That's something we do pretty much every single week here at the firm. We have clients for that need. Just a heads up, right? Like once you get the residency, you become a tax resident on the spot. So what we see happening very often is like there is a couple, one of the spouses is a U.S. citizen, the other spouse is a Brazilian/U.S. citizen. They want to stay in Brazil. And then when I tell them they are going to be, that the U.S. citizen is going to become a resident on the spot, they usually say, well, we want to wait for a few years. And in this case, like the digital nomad route or the retirement route could be good choices because they don't make you become a tax resident on the spot. I like to say they have no effect on the taxation, meaning they don't make you a tax resident, but they don't shield you against tax residency as well. So they have no effect. What's going to catch you eventually is going to be the 183 days rule, meaning that once you are on day 184 in Brazil in any given 365 days period, then yes, you're going to become a tax resident anyhow, right? So Usually if you are in a transition, you could stay half a year in Brazil, half a year in the US, and maybe do that for a few years until you are at the point of moving to Brazil for good. But again, if you apply for the marriage-based permanent residency, as soon as you get the RNM card, as soon as you get the RNM card, guess what? You're gonna become a tax resident, and this is the card. Maybe just to bring some colors to the live stream. This is the resident card. So on the day, actually, it's not even on the day when you get the card, because before getting the card, you're gonna attend an appointment with the Brazilian Federal Police. They're gonna take a picture. They're gonna take your biometrics. They also gonna give you a protocol, which means like a receipt page with this information on it, and your RNM number, which means your number of registration as a migrant in Brazil, is going to be issued. So it is on this day when this number is issued that you are considered by the Brazilian Revenue Service as a tax resident. All right. So it's even before the card, but just sharing that to illustrate the concept, if you will. But a very interesting route, Gary. If you have your wife, another upside, like super upside, is that again, through the marriage route, you just need to stay a single year as a permanent resident in Brazil before you can take a shot at the citizenship application. Just don't forget, Gary, that you need to speak an advanced level of Portuguese. You need to write, you need to understand, because an advanced level of Portuguese, it's a requirement, not for the residency, not for the permanent residency, but for the citizenship. All right, Gary, that's good news. Glad you know about it. Zulu time, yes, sir. What is the age requirement for the RioTime visa? I think I'll stay away from the labor law. Yeah, listen, that's something crazy, right? Like, I mean, I like to say Brazil has so many upsides, but we also have no lack of downsides, and this, labor lawsuit craziness. It's an absolute, major downside. And you know what is funny? Brazilians, they have no clue about how weird or how, outside of the curve this is, because again, people are in Brazil, legislators, they are in Brazil. Yes, they travel to the United States, but that's, to enjoy Disneyland. And they have no clue about how things work in different countries. So they just develop and entrench into this labor lawsuit thing. And Brazil now is like the country with most labor lawsuits in any country. Like out of the 200 plus countries, Brazil is the champion, right? Like, I mean, and guess what? This is not too good for the workforce, because guess what? Whenever we are paying our employees, we need to provision something for those losses, right? Like, I mean, if someone is gonna take an additional bite at the apple, guess what? Like the entrepreneurs and business owners, what they are gonna do is to actually provision. So instead of paying more money to the employees like they could do it, they're actually gonna, sometimes something we recommend for some of our business clients, not immigration. I'm just talking about business clients, not immigration slash business clients. We're gonna tell, listen, you know what you should do? You should have savings just for when those lawsuits they come. Like first, they don't come at a surprise, because you know that sooner or later they're gonna happen. And second, when it comes to pay the eventually a settlement that you may want to have, instead of fighting for years and years at court, is not gonna hurt your bottom line, because you are provisioning already for this craziness. All right, so there you go. Just like sharing a few thoughts about this reality in Brazil. Age requirement, Zulu, no age requirement whatsoever. We have applicants We have applications approved for people in their 30s and their 40s. We have a bunch of people from the U.S. military under disability, right? So it's unfortunate that they are disabled, but the upside is that they can come to Brazil in their 30s and 40s and enjoy Brazil as retirees, all right? We have, and I know I told you before, not you, like, I mean, our audience before, that we have a gentleman in his 20s, right? And I think he was approved. Like, I just need to update with our team. But I remember we started his application in 2024. So I think at this point, he is already a retiree in Brazil in his 20s. But 30s and 40s, we have a bunch of people that in their 20s. That was the first gentleman we had last year. And eventually I'm going to be able to say, well, we have a clients in their 40s, 30s, and 20s approved, right? But that's just to highlight, Zulu, that there is no minimum age. The bottom line is that you have retirement income, right? So again, disability, for instance, disability is a traditional classic retirement income. And therefore, if you have a disability over $2,000, Brazil has absolutely no concern about your age. You're good to apply for the retirement route in Brazil. Okay, all right. Dragon, how recent does the letter of verification need to be? How recent does the bank statement need to be? For both instances, applying to Brazil around July 14th. So they gotta be reasonably recent, Dragon. There is no firm, no firm deadline or, like valid timeline for those documents. So if you're applying on July, you could consider something, from May, for instance, right? Like, I mean, May, sometimes we work with you, we wait until the beginning of June, right? And then once you enter the country, like ideally we would have everything ready, and then we file as soon as you are in the country. So that's why we usually say we like to start working on the paperwork before you leave the country for two reasons. First reason, because you are in your country. So if we need you to get documents from your country, it's going to be easier. The second reason is because once you are in Brazil, we are ready to file your application. As soon as you are in the country, you file your application. And this is going to shorten the timeline between you entering the country and getting this nice thing, which is the Brazilian resident card. For those of you who know Brazil, it's a pain in the neck when you don't have the tax ID. If you don't have this card, it's almost impossible for you to open a regular bank account. So the sooner you have those things, the sooner you can start to function better in the Brazilian society, if you will. All right, that's why we usually recommend starting this journey before you come to Brazil and get started with us. All right. Dragon, I know the criminal background records has to be within 90 days. Absolutely, Dragon. That's the only one that in our experience is going to have a firm timeline. Exactly. So if you get a background check, if you get the records, and when you file, these records are 91 days old, there is a chance they are going to be refused because they are older than 90 days. So you're right. This is the one, the traditional one that Brazil is going to be firm in terms of timeline. Absolutely. Zulu, I'm 49. You're pretty young, Zulu. Look at that. Retired and on my way. Worked for years for American Airlines and been to Rio, São Paulo, and Belo Horizonte 1,000 times. And absolutely love Brazil. So interesting. We had another pilot from American Airlines, Zulu, and he married in São Paulo, right? So we did assist him with the marriage residency application, and so on. And for him, it was super easy, to go back and forth. Whenever you're marrying in Brazil, like there is a bunch of documents you need to collect from the U.S. Not easy, okay. But for him, it was a different story because he could, come and go as often as needed. It was a really interesting experience. And thank you for your love for Brazil, Zulu. A very special place. We really appreciate So we are almost arriving at the end of today's live stream. I appreciate the likes. We have a good number of likes today. I really appreciate your collaboration. Don't forget, our next live stream is going to be on Wednesday. We're going to have another live stream on Wednesday. That's going to be on the 29th. On Wednesdays, we are not meeting at 3:30 p.m. Rio de Janeiro time. We are actually meeting at 12:30 p.m. Rio de Janeiro time. There is like the episode, the live stream is already on scheduled on YouTube. So if you go over there and you click on the notify me, that's gonna allow YouTube to send you a message once the live stream starts. So if you have additional comments, participation, I'm gonna be very glad to see you on Wednesday. And let's take a look at the final couple of messages over here. Dragon is asking, do the criminal records need an apostille from Italy? I'm American, but I'm an Italian resident. Also, do I get the documents translated while in Brazil or before arriving? All right, so an apostille, right? Like usually if you are filing with a law firm like ours, we're not gonna need an apostille for your criminal records, right? But if you are applying, let's say by yourself, then yes, we do recommend you to get an apostille. Because we know that for us, we haven't been asked up to now for an apostille on the criminal records, but we hear that self-applicants sometimes they do receive this request. All right, and in terms of translation, we usually send our clients' documents to a partner translation company, and that's usually after, or of course, we have everything reviewed, because we don't want you to be spending money on translation before we are sure that the document, or we have a good idea that the document is going to be accepted. All right, Dragon and Zulu, appreciate all your help. Take care. See you next live stream. Thank you so much for showing up, Zulu, and your, nice words. Very good to have all of you over here. I'm going to wish you a blessed rest of your Sunday, and I see you on Wednesday.